Well guys, he actually did it. He actually made a response video after saying repeatedly that he wasn't going to make a response video because I was just not worth his time and in his eyes, small fry. Yet, yeah, he also was complaining about how if he did make a response to me, it's not how he should go about to make his channel grow.
Yes, I got bored and changed my mind and decided to do a response video to you. So what? What exactly is the diss? Is the diss, oh my god, you got bored? Or is the diss that you're such a loser, anybody who wastes their time on you, they also become a loser themselves? Seriously, what's the insult here?
Yet, his response video has almost double the views of all his normal videos. So, I don't know, maybe I really am helping him out there.
The standard that my videos get is usually 1,500 views, like in the first week or the first 2 weeks, okay? That's exactly what your video got. That's not 3 times as much as my other videos, okay? It's the same as much as my other videos. So no, your channel's not big and you're not really helping me out. You have 800 subscribers, okay? That's not a lot of subscribers. I'm not trying to be a jerk, okay? I'd rather go after somebody that has millions of subscribers. That way I could bring more people into my channel.
Voting with your money. The one form of democracy where you get more votes depending on what family you're born into. I don't see how that can go wrong at all.
The vast majority of people are semi-poor and middle class. They make up the majority of the votes. The rich only make up a very extremely small percent of the population. Their votes will hardly matter at all.
Okay, so this argument is just absolutely retarded, and clearly he has no idea just how grueling the wealth inequality in today's society is. In fact, research shows that as of this year, the top 1% of wealthiest people in the world have equal wealth to the bottom 99% of people in the world.
Are you fucking serious right now? So because you're saying because they have equal income, they make the same amount of purchases. The 1% make as much purchases as the 99%. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's absolutely ridiculous. As well as this, the bottom 99% do not act as a hive mind. They do not all decide we're just not gonna use our money in this way anymore. And even if they all magically, every single one of them did, the top 1% still has as much power as them, even if they acted in some kind of magical hive mind.
The 99% don't need to act in a hive mind to have more votes than the 1%. Are you freaking serious?
Let me guess, under glorious anarcho-capitalism, wealth inequality would not be as much, right? Because it's all to do with the state, right? Well, in response to this, I'm going to leave a link to Marx's theory of capital accumulation, which is inherent to all forms of capitalism, and shows that over time, wealth becomes concentrated into the hands of a few people, whether you have a state or not.
Okay, so the 1% almost have as much money as the 99%. Okay, that's interesting, dude. But let's increase that. Let's just say the 1% has 90% of the money. Guess what? The 99% are still going to be making more purchases, and they're going to be the majority of the vote. The amount of money that the 1% has is irrelevant because they're not the majority.
So even if at the start, people may be able to vote with their money, and again, even though in this glorious utopian anarcho-capitalism, you still haven't addressed the fact that some people have more votes than others when voting with money.
Well, I guess your audience will never know since you cut out the clip of me talking. Luckily, I still have that clip, so let's take a look at it. The vast majority of people are semi-poor and middle class. They make up the majority of the votes. The rich only make up a very extremely small percent of the population. Their votes will hardly matter at all. Looks like you just cut out me addressing it and said that I didn't address it at all. How dishonest of you. By the way, like I said, the poor, the semi-poor, and the middle class will make up by far most of the votes. So their votes absolutely will be making the changes. 1% of the population won't be making the majority of the purchases just because they have half the money. They don't have enough time in the day to make enough purchases to catch up to the amount of purchases the other 99% of the population makes. Come on, dude. Think.
Because let's keep in mind that obviously it's going to be in the interest of these companies to not let people know about this, so they might try and cover it up, the fact they're destroying the environment or having horrific work conditions in some third world country that no one cares about.
What happens if your lungs suddenly give out today? oh yeah, you die. Yeah, stop me in the middle of an argument and tell me that I haven't made an argument. Real mature of you. Here's the rest of the argument you cut in on. If one part of the system stops functioning, yeah, the whole system fails. But luckily the media never has stopped doing its job, and it's very effective at exposing companies, especially when they try to keep a lid on things. How can a company keep something under the rug when the people of that company are being oppressed and are rewarded justice for exposing the wrongdoings to the media? It's very rare that any company can keep anything from the media.
Did you hear that, guys? The media is very effective.
Yeah, the media is very effective. What are you talking about? Are you saying the media doesn't work? Do you know what the media is? Look up the definition of the media. It does its job. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's take a look at some statistics again quickly. A couple years ago, several decades ago, you used to have about 50 or so different companies controlling all the different media sources. Over time, it's been concentrated into about 12 or so. Now, I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I'll get the statistics to go over the videos I'm talking about it. And as well as this, most media sources, and definitely all mainstream media sources, are controlled by the rich. Therefore, these media sources are biased to the rich's interest.
Yes, there's only 12 mainstream media companies, but I really doubt that there's going to be a rich guy that owns all of them. And that he's going to do that just so he could make sure he could pollute. I really doubt he's going to go through that much effort. And even if he did have all the money in the world and had all the effort in the world and really wanted to pollute, and he did buy all 12 companies, there's people on YouTube that will stop him, that will expose him. One third of the people on the internet own YouTube accounts. Any of those people can make a YouTube video exposing bad business practices. And the rich can't control that, can they? The media does its job. The media is unstoppable. Are you going to claim that the rich are going to buy off 1/3 of the internet? Okay, so the mainstream media, you're saying, is a voice for the rich. That's interesting. But the thing is, not everybody in the media is rich and has that voice. Look at YouTube, for example. Poor people, middle-class people, all share their voice.
And I find it hilarious that you bring up YouTube and the internet in general. Because let's even assume for a moment that viral videos on YouTube even have a large effect on the population, because you'd be surprised by the percent of people who actually give a shit what happens on the internet.
What a piss poor argument. Why would somebody care if the story came from the internet or if it came from the mainstream media? Honestly, the internet's more trustworthy. Independent journalists, I trust way more than a mainstream media journalist for the reasons you discussed earlier. Because they could be compromised.
But let's assume that we get some, company being exposed on YouTube and the video goes viral. Well, I'm sorry, but what's to stop the company owning YouTube or any platform for that matter from just deleting the video and censoring the video? Seriously, what's to stop them? The nap? I mean, I don't know, dude.
Oh, look, another argument basic common sense can debunk. Okay, let's play this out. A company pollutes. An independent journalist covers this on YouTube. It goes viral, like you said. The company also owns Google, one of the largest companies in the world. Somehow, they delete the video. Then the mainstream media covers that the story is being suppressed. The person who owns Google, his career is now ruined. They will go to private court for fraud. They will lose their money and likely their companies. Oh yeah, private court. The thing that I said that will stop the pollution. Why are we talking about mainstream media when I specifically said if the mainstream media didn't work, private courts would? Why did you cut out that half of the argument? Also, why am I feeling deja vu? Oh yes, because I already debunked this already. I already said if the private company is suppressed, the mainstream media will cover it. But you cut that argument out too. What's your argument against this? The obvious evolution of your argument is you're going to say, what if the company owns YouTube and all 12 mainstream media companies, which is a ridiculous argument. The only reason you're backpedaling now and making us state things we've already said is because you don't want to make that ridiculous evolution in your argument that you have to make. Essentially, you know you have lost. Let's assume the system is working and people do stop buying their products. What will happen? Oh yeah, the government will bail the companies out and save them, allowing them to pursue any terrible practices they want. Realize if the consumer had power and a choice and government wouldn't get in the way, just like an anarcho-capitalist system for example, they would be more likely to have a chance to bring that company down. And if people voting with their wallets doesn't work, in an anarcho-capitalist society, private courts would bring those companies down. Also, I find it funny you think the people are too dumb to vote for things and said we need rulers instead, but those rulers would be human too and carry the same flaws.
Okay, so two things. You started that entire argument with, let's assume the system works. I'm saying the system isn't going to work. So you're just saying, oh yeah, but let's assume it does, it'll be okay. Like, what?
I love how you remove your argument, the context of what I'm talking about, to straw man my argument to make me sound like I'm being ridiculous and saying things I'm not. I wasn't saying let's assume I win. Okay, I win. I was saying in today's society, because of socialist programs you love so much, if the company fails because customers don't like the way companies do business, they would still exist, because if they fail, big government will simply bail them out. And I was saying in my society, an anarcho-capitalist society, that wouldn't be happening. So companies would actually be able to fail. The point being is that it's an improvement from what we have today. Let's say this backup system fails and the customer doesn't care where the products come from. That's where the private courts step in. They will stop the companies. They will stop the abuse of workers. They will stop pollution. They will stop all of that, as I already said. But of course, you completely ignore that argument.
The only way to stop this is for removing the idea of profit altogether, so there are no incentive for companies to intentionally damage the environment or intentionally make their workers' conditions worse.
Ever heard the expression, don't bite the hand that feeds you? That goes perfectly for this. Companies are going to try their best not to piss off their consumer.
Okay, so yeah, companies may not try to piss off their consumer, but it just so happens that putting workers in horrific working conditions doesn't piss off the consumer, because like I've already said, the consumer just doesn't care.
Okay, dude, I'm letting you have this. Let's just say the customer doesn't care, okay? Ignore everything I said. The customer doesn't care. Private courts will still prevent the problem. You haven't touched on the private courts yet.
Things like the drug war is very much a tool used by the ruling class to keep themselves in power.
Fucking wow, dude. Nice conspiracy theory you got going there. You probably think I'm a greedy capitalist pig, but you know what? I want drugs legalized. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, you know why you want drugs legalized? Because you're not a greedy capitalist pig. If you were a greedy capitalist pig, you'd probably realize that if drugs are illegal, that economically suits you. You know, for the reasons that I've already explained, but of course that's just a conspiracy theory, right?
True capitalists are not Republicans who want to keep the drug war going, okay? True capitalists are anarcho-capitalists, and all anarcho-capitalists want to end the drug war.
You know, I mean, I guess the war on drugs just never happened. Because as far as I'm concerned, a police force is a police force, whether they're under the state or under just the capitalists in general.
Police get to use extortion, kidnapping, imprisoning people like animals. They get to get away with pointing guns, searching your car, and violating your rights. And they get to use force. Private security can't do any of those things.
I'm sorry, so private security can't use force. Then why does it exist? What do they do? If they can't exert force on anything, then they are not a security force at all. Unless, of course, someone is violating the NAP, but then, of course, they can use force.
Again, you forgot the mainstream media coverage stated and proved it was not only 2 times cheaper than police, but it was 2 times more effective than police. How is 2 times more effective than police not effective at all? They are able to defend people and people's property using self-defense on the people's behalf. They just don't need the ability to extort people, search people's houses, search people's cars, be able to bother people about victimless crimes, can't kidnap people, they can't imprison people like animals, and they can't point guns at people for victimless crimes, which a lot less people die from victimless crimes, making it a better system. That, of course, assumes the working class and the capitalists are somehow enemies. They're not. Any animosity there might be has to be trumped up by the socialists.
Look, what mainly puts the ruling class and the working class against each other is, now this is horrifically oversimplified, and it feels like someone's going to call me out for missing in huge points here, but I'm just trying to put it in basic terms. But everyone under capitalism wants to be rich, right? Well, obviously you can't have everybody rich, because then the concept of being rich just doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, I'm trying really hard not to laugh at you for not understanding economics. Okay, there's 2 things you can mean. The first one being inflation. Let's tackle that one first. Okay, let's say somebody got a printing press and printed $5 million for each individual in the world. Okay? Yeah, that's not going to add any value. Why? Because there was no value created. Nobody built houses, nobody built cars, nobody built chairs, nobody built anything. All you did was add some paper to the mix. You just printed money, you know what I mean? Actual product creates value. If that money was real and it was actually backed up by product, then yes. The next morning when everybody wakes up, people would be richer. Okay, let's say you mean it the other way. If everybody in the world got rich, would they actually be rich? Wouldn't they just be, like, for example, middle class? Well, look at Africa, okay? Look at the middle class in Africa. Now look at the middle class in America. Wouldn't you agree that the people in America, that middle class, is richer? They have more value. They have more things. So yes, in Ancapistan, people would be better off. They would be a lot better off.
So it's kind of like a constant battle to keep the working class not rich so the bourgeois can be rich themselves, right? And that's why they're enemies, among, you know, several other things. But that's kind of the main principle. Well, not everyone can be rich under capitalism, otherwise they're not rich. This is why the proletariat and the bourgeois are always against each other, because their class interests will never align.
Nope, no. You just don't understand economics.
He also talks a little bit about how much cheaper it would be to have private police. And what I find interesting about this is that he hasn't actually provided any sources for this, but we will assume for a second that it's true.
Oh, it's so nice of you just to assume that it's true, although that the private security in the video and the news source itself stated that it was true.
Okay, fair enough. Honestly, when I was editing the video, I just kind of skipped out that entire news clip altogether, because again, I came back to the point where, well, they're a police force, so as far as I'm concerned, they're bourgeois and not really there to protect the working class either way. But I guess, yeah, okay, the news source said that, and I missed that because I'm not using a script for this, so it's like kind of offhand comment. So okay, you got me there. I'm sorry. It's true then. They're cheaper in that specific example. It only focuses on this one aspect of the state that you're paying for now. He's saying, oh yeah, without the state we'd all have so much more money. And I find that interesting as well, because going by basic economics, that line the ANCAPs like to pull a lot of the time, if everyone's suddenly richer, then won't inflation just kind of cancel out most of that anyway?
No, that's not how economics works. Okay, use that meme 3 times to say that I'm not making an argument, but each time you use that meme, you cut my argument off early. Here's the rest of my argument that he cut off. Yeah, and no, wealth and money aren't the same thing. Wealth is the quality and the quantity of goods and services that circulate in an economy. Money's the total currency.
Okay, well then, explain to me maybe why that's not why economics works, instead of making this irrelevant distinction between currency and wealth, because the same thing happens either way. Whether you want to say the people have more wealth or people have more currency, inflation still comes into it.
Alright, about a minute ago, I already explained how inflation worked, so I'm not going to explain it again just for the sake of time.
If you're in England, okay, and suddenly we go to an anarcho-capitalist society, we have free healthcare here, yeah? So someone who doesn't really have many health problems may probably end up having to pay less because they're not paying the taxes anymore, and yeah, they now need to pay for their police department and the fire department and that, but that's okay. They were essentially kind of ish doing that through taxes anyway, and they save a bit of money. Now let's take someone who has like cancer, okay? This person now no longer has the free healthcare provided through the collectivized taxes of the country. This person is going to be significantly worse off because now they need to pay a shit ton more to treat their own cancer.
Well, luckily, he's not paying anything in taxes, so now he's filthy fucking rich, and he pays for insurance. And the fact that he pays for insurance, he's covered. Wow, look at that.
Okay, now I find this claim that you've made quite interesting, so I've decided to do some maths. Now, the average American household income is about $50,000 a year. Now, I'm not sure if this is before or after tax. We're going to assume both. Now, the average tax rate is about 21%. If we get 21% of I'm doing this like right now. We get 21% of 50,000. That's about 10,000 a year. That they're paying in tax, right? The average cost of cancer for cancer treatment in America ranges from 10,000 to 30,000 a month. Yeah, and that's literally spending all that on just cancer. That's not even ignoring all the other things you'd have to buy when there are no public services like the police or the fire department or anything. So tax money does not cover these kinds of things.
Yeah, I guess you're right if you ignore my entire argument, you know, where I say that you have insurance because you could afford it because you don't pay taxes.
It gives people a little bit more money, okay? It gives people a nicer yearly income. But if someone has to now pay for extensive medical treatment or extensive security services or extensive anything really more than average, they are fucked. They are really, really fucked. And I've just proven with statistics and maths that if you have cancer, unless you have a really high paying job, you will probably die.
Again, I guess that could happen if you don't have insurance. But who the hell wouldn't have insurance when you don't have to pay taxes and you have all the money in the world to buy insurance? In an ANCAP society with no taxes and deregulation, with no cronyism, would bring the cost of everything down. Hospitals would actually be affordable. It's not just no taxes making everything rich, it's the dereg, the competition, the anti-cronyism, etc. mixed in there as well. All of that will factor into making healthcare affordable.
Okay, and obviously if you have cancer, there's a good chance you die anyway, but at the very least, there's a chance you can recover with treatment, and there's a chance you can actually lead an alright life for a couple years before it eventually gets to you. In your world, though, no. You get cancer, and if you're on the average wage, no, you're dumb.
I can't believe how dishonest you are. You ignored my entire argument. You created a straw man. Ugh, whatever. Let's move on.
That just can't go wrong at all, because we all know that economic interest doesn't result in biases of any form. So if the courts are running for profit, then they're not going to have an incentive to kind of bend the laws anyway, are they?
That can happen today, and I don't see anything preventing that from happening today, and it doesn't happen, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And not only that, private courts will most likely have a jury, not a judge, and a jury is really hard to pay off discreetly, so I don't think anyone's going to be getting paid off.
Were you calling the justice system today perfect? I mean, honestly, I don't really know too much about it in detail anyway, but I still think it needs to change. I mean, again, it's still suited to bourgeois interest because of state apparatus. But you say that it's most likely that an anarcho-capitalist society would have juries in their courts as well. But, well, what the fuck is stopping them from just having a single judge that decides everything?
Because that's too similar to having a ruler, the thing that anarcho-capitalists are against.
This is anarcho-capitalism. They can do what they want. They're their own private company or their own private property. Just because having a jury would be better, if it doesn't suit their economic interest, why the fuck would they do it?
In an anarcho-capitalist society, the society doesn't like judges. They don't like rulers. So they won't do business with that judge, that ruler, that private court. And that won't serve the economic interest of that private court to keep having a judge. So they'll have to change their practices. They'll have to get a jury, or else their business will fail. Because again, it doesn't serve their economic interest, like you said.
Because of outside pressure? Well, how's that going to stop them? It's not really going to stop, business for that company, because if they have a private judge, a singular judge that can freely determine what laws they want to impose by themselves, then surely it's going to be in their interest to have the less severe punishments as possible to get people to use their courts, right?
The jury will be deciding if people are innocent or guilty, not the private court, not a judge.
So you kind of see what I'm getting at here, right? If you have a bunch of different private courts, then isn't your sentence going to be different, like between each court?
Oh no, different laws in different locations? That's like having different laws in different states and countries. That would be complete chaos. Oh wait, we have that today, and it works out just fine.
Yeah, but dude, you have to understand that, countries still have, countries are obviously bigger places, and they still have universal laws, and there are even some things, some like contracts signed by Western countries in particular, which has laws that apply to all of their countries. And in the US, for example, you have different laws depending on different states, but even they still have like federal laws which have to apply to all states. In this case, you're going to be having completely different laws with no rhyme or reason from town to town, and that would just be ridiculous.
Okay, I got a strike on my account. I can only make 15-minute long videos, okay? So between these two videos, I can only have a half hour in length. And I'm already getting close to that limit, so I can't explain to you how private courts work. You got to check out that video called Machinery of Freedom. But I'll have you know that the laws don't change from city to city. They change from private firm to private firm. But you're wrong. It's not ridiculous. Not at all. And there's not going to be 500,000 laws like there are today. It's basically just going to be the NAP and not much else. In our next video, we will address how to combat those dastardly corporations.
There's only one way, and it's through glorious revolution.
Anybody else would just imagine this kid being part of a revolution? It's kind of a funny thought, isn't it? This kid is the last person I'd be afraid of.
Oh, no. You don't need to worry about me being part of the revolution. Rather, the entire working class rising up to overthrow their capitalist overlords. And I think most of the working class are a bit more buff than me. I do admit I need to get back on my weights, but like, yeah, no, I'll be leading the revolution from the bunkers, so you won't see me as much. Just the angry working classes.
Your video has literally given me cancer.
Well, let's hope that you don't actually get that anarcho-capitalist society, and end up having to spend ridiculous amounts of money on your therapy.
In an anarcho-capitalist society, you don't pay income tax, you don't pay sales tax, or any tax at all. You have a great deal of money, meaning you have insurance when you need it. So I would be just fine. Overall, I would say this response video was worse than the first one. Anyways, if you like my videos, please follow Anarchy Bell on Facebook and YouTube.